Welcome back to r/LegalAdvice, where people ask questions, get advice, and we get satisfaction. If you are new around here, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to join our awesome community, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled, "School won't allow my son to carry his EpiPens." My 3-year-old son has a peanut allergy and recently started preschool at a public elementary school in our local school district. I let the teacher know about his allergy during orientation and that I was planning on sending an EpiPen in his backpack every day. When school started the following week, the teacher informed me that she had been told my son would not be allowed to self-carry the EpiPen in his backpack due to his young age. The district's written policy allows students to self-carry and even self-administer life-saving medications, for example, EpiPens, insulin, inhalers were all specifically mentioned, by submitting a consent form signed by their parent and doctor with no age specifications. I have completed and submitted this form, but the school still wants to keep the EpiPens in the front office, several buildings away from his classroom, locked in a box, and only select staff members have keys. Young kids are notoriously terrible at recognizing and reporting their symptoms quickly. The time it could take for the teacher to notice a problem and get the EpiPen from the office could be fatal. I am willing to compromise and have the EpiPen kept in a secure but obvious location in the classroom rather than the backpack, but the teacher is not willing without the school's blessing. What are my options here? Do they have the legal right to establish an age restriction in this situation? And a user in the comments said, "Someone mentioned requesting self-carry as a reasonable accommodation. I strongly disagree that a 3-year-old carrying EpiPens in their backpack would be considered a reasonable accommodation for several reasons. First of all is the curious nature of this age group. If another child got into the backpack, they could set off the EpiPen or misplace it, leaving the allergic child without their emergency medications. Is a 3-year-old able to make sure the pens stay sealed in their case and no dirt gets into it? I know I have found mine open in my purse on a few occasions over the years, and I know backpacks can get nasty pretty dirty as well. What if it falls out of the backpack and the child does not notice? Will your child remember to take his backpack if they go on a walk to the park? Will your child be able to communicate to an adult that he's not only having a reaction, but where to find the EpiPens? There are many variables, and I would be very hesitant to trust a 3-year-old to reliably carry EpiPens. That said, this is essential life-saving medication. I would work with your doctor to write a note stating that as an accommodation the EpiPens need to be in the same room as the child at all times in an unlocked case. I have heard of some schools where a meds bag goes with the children from room to room in the elementary years. Push for an adult to take the responsibility for his life and safety. This is too important to put in the hands of a toddler. And guys, I would be very curious to know your opinion about this story. Do you think the 3-year-old should be able to carry an EpiPen by themselves, or should the teacher be responsible for it? I would probably tend to agree with the commenter here that the child is just too young to carry something this important. However, this EpiPen definitely shouldn't be locked away far away, or rather a few buildings away, but instead always be in the classroom. And you know guys, this story actually reminds me, a few years ago I had a side job or mini job, whatever you call it, where I was a so-called learning helper for a child with cognitive learning disabilities. And this child also had something like an EpiPen, I suppose, in case he gets a seizure. However, this was basically in a little suitcase or whatever you would call it, and he did indeed carry it from room to room, which I suppose is the best resolution here. And the next one is titled, "Update: The Saga of the 3-year-old and the EpiPen." I really appreciate all the advice and personal stories shared with me last week. This is my first experience dealing with my son's allergy in school, so I clearly had/have a lot to learn. I was able to get a letter from the pediatrician stating that the EpiPen must be kept in the classroom. The teacher now has it stored in a high cabinet, along with a written emergency action plan that details how and when to administer it. I provided her with a clear plastic case with a child-resistant cap that I ordered from Amazon and was made for precisely this purpose. The teacher and the classroom aide were trained by the school nurse in how to use it. I also made certain that written instructions would be provided to any substitute teacher or alternate caregiver my son may be left with. We have a rotating schedule where parents take turns providing snacks for the entire class. The teacher has asked that these snacks all be peanut-free. Neither myself or the teacher have asked that the other students make their individual lunches peanut-free. I simply requested that my son be seated away from anyone eating food containing peanuts. Since each little table only seats 4 kids, this has been easy to implement. I also provided a second EpiPen, a bottle of liquid Benadryl and a copy of the emergency plan to the front office. I also confirmed that multiple adults at the school have access to the medications locked in the office and are trained to administer them if necessary. Most of the advice I received on my original post was very supportive and helpful. However, I was baffled by the amount of judgment and criticism I received from the rest of the comments. For those of you who suggested that my son does not have the right to be enrolled in school, I hope you never have a loved one with an allergy, a disability or a learning difference. For those of you who thought I was advocating for my 3-year-old to inject himself, I recommend that you brush up on your reading comprehension skills. For those of you that thought I was being reckless by putting the EpiPen in his backpack, maybe you had a point. It is true that I never considered another child would get a hold of it or that my son would lose it. I took your words to heart and found a solution we can all live with. Now let's just hope we never need to use it. And guys, I would be curious to know, do you have any allergies that have a major impact on your life? Let us know in the comments. And I gotta say, if anyone has a peanut allergy or any food related allergy, I gotta say it would be pretty difficult to visit Thailand if you ask me. I mean, sure, you can get food to suit your allergy needs, however, it is definitely not easy if you don't speak the language well. Anyway, if you have watched until here, please don't forget to post some star emojis in the comments and also like the video if you want to support me. Thank you so much in advance. And the next one is titled US Minnesota, I assume, sold my car to a dealership. They called me saying it had engine damage and wanted to cancel the deal. I sold my car to a dealership last night. This morning they called and told me not to cash the check because there was no coolant and the oil was milky, and that they had it in for an estimate on repairs. They said depending on how serious the damage was, they may want to cancel the deal. Now, I did not sign any sort of agreement with them on any conditions for purchase. All I did was sign the title and take a check from them. I deposited the check into my bank account via mobile deposit the minute I got home. The car did not have any warning lights indicating low coolant, did not have any thick white smoke, and none of the temperature gauges showed anything outside of normal. Can they cancel a sales deal like this? What do I need to / can I do about this? Edit some points of clarification. I deposited the check already. The agreement was that they pay off my existing lien and issue me a check for the difference. As of right now, my lien holder is not showing a pending or completed payment for the payoff. I did not purchase anything or make any agreement to purchase anything from them. I did not sign anything other than the title. If there was any damage, I was unaware of it and the car showed no signs of it. They contacted me and told me they wanted to buy my car based on a for sale ad I put up online. And a user in the comments suggested, check your contract with them, but usually they bought it as is. So feel free to tell them to pound sand. And another person said, tell them used cars sold are sold as is and without any warranties. Another person said, this, if they wanted to inspect it first, they should have drawn up a contract and made payment conditional upon results of the inspection. They didn't do that, they cut a check and OP, you signed the title. So it is sold as is. OP, you can tell them politely that the deal is already done. And the next one is an update to the dealership story. After reading most, if not all, of the comments in the previous post, I called the director of used car sales on his direct number, listed on their website. Initially, he tried to give me the same spiel as the guy that called me earlier, but when I told him that he should have had an inspection done before I left and that all sales were final and as is, as there was no other agreement in place, he immediately changed his tone. At that point, he told me, "They only intended to ask for my assistance in approving warranty repairs if needed, and they never intended to try and cancel the transaction," despite both him and his salesman trying to do so. I told him I wanted a cancelled copy of both checks in the transaction and a copy of their evaluation of the vehicle and a formal apology from their dealership in the mail. He agreed, and they did indeed send a letter with all the requested information except the apology, but I'm not going to call them back up. They have also since paid off the remainder of my original loan as agreed upon, and they've had the title reissued properly. I do not know what repairs were actually needed or done on the car, only that the dealership that serviced the car, which is different from the one I sold it to, listed engine checked and multi-point inspection to the Carfax. Thank you, LegalAdvice, for the suggestions and help. And the next one is titled, "Daughter was assaulted at school. School had her do statement without parents present." Background: my daughter is a 16-year-old freshman at a local high school. She was interested in a boy who seemingly showed little interest in return until recently. He asked her out on a date to a local movie theater on October 15th. They went to a local mall, and while there he talked her into going into a place with no cameras and talked her into sex. She says that she was not willing at the time, but he apologized for what he did, so she did not bring it up again. After that, he had very little contact with her, though they shared a class together. On December 13th, he convinced her to stay after school. She sent me a text saying that she missed her bus and to come get her. I was at my tutoring job after school, so was late to get her. When she got in the car, she was shaking and scared and did not talk much. I assumed it was because I was late to get her. 2 days ago, she decided to tell a teacher the truth. He asked her to come with him to a spot where there was no cameras to cuddle. He went in first, she came in a few minutes later. The cameras showed them leaving separately. During that time, he continuously suggested that they have sex again, grabbed her bare breast and finally forced her down to assault her. The school called me to the school and my husband and I went up there. They told us what was going on and that it was turned over to the local sheriff, but she had filled out a witness form with what she said happened. She has an appointment with the gingerbread house on Monday. Supposedly at that apartment she would speak to the detective assigned to the case. We have already taken her to the doctor to be tested for anything. She has been sick and nauseated since this happened. The principal suggested that the first incident was voluntary and that may have brought on the second incident. So what do? I want to believe the principal, who's the husband of one of my former co-workers, that he has my daughter's best interest at heart, but the form she filled out along with the suggestion of this being a spurned girlfriend has me on edge. And a user in the comments wrote, "The witness form is something that the police had her do, right? It sounds like she reported an assault and the school contacted both her parents and the police, which is what I would expect them to do." And another user said, "Cop here, although the police of course collect witness statements, the school often has the students fill out a form of a witness statement as well. I'm not sure what the concern is about the witness statement by the OP." And the next one is an update to the daughter story. Today was the first day of the new school year. Last year the young man that attacked my daughter was removed from the school and did not return. This year he was back on campus and not only that, was in a class with her. He immediately was removed from the room when my daughter arrived. But the fact that he was back in the school upset her enough that we had to check her out of school and bring her home. We asked the director of high schools at the school board office what options we had. He said he didn't want to let her transfer because she wanted to be there and didn't want to punish her. and asked us to keep her out of school until he could investigate. She is feeling a major violation of trust and no longer safe at her school. My husband is using his PTO time to try to get her taken care of, but it seems that a transfer is out of the question. The school let us down in her protection. And I gotta say guys, that is absolutely outrageous if you ask me, and I don't really understand why a transfer is out of question. And unfortunately, this is where the story ends. There have been no further updates, and OP did not respond to any private message requests. Either way, that is sometimes how some stories end on Legal Advice, because obviously it is not a fabricated story subreddit, so it is just real life. And guys, just a little warning, the next one does not have an update, but I decided to still take it in this video because it is just so interesting. It is titled, Bank Clear Check for $538,367 out of my checking account despite my name being nowhere on the check. I have a rather puzzling turn of events. I cannot find any information regarding how to proceed online because it is such a backward situation. I've been banking with the same bank for 14 years. I am working poor, so I've never had more than $3,000 in my checking account that I can recall. I have a very obvious pattern to my spending habits, as I only generally have enough to pay bills, so my account is drained pretty much every other week. I get paid bi-weekly. I just include this info because I feel it is important to the larger picture. So this morning I woke up to my alarm and a text alert underneath it from said bank said that my account balance is minus $537,107,000. I got paid today, so I flipped out as one might expect and tried to call the fraud hotline. They conveniently open an hour after I am already at work, where I am not allowed to have a cell phone. I checked online and was able to access the cancelled check image, which I conveniently cannot access now, and it appears to be a property sale through a local to the state lawyer as the trustee. The routing and account numbers are indeed my account, however, my name is nowhere on the front or back and neither is my signature. I managed to secure the use of my vacation time so I could sit in our air-conditioned parking lot, sarcasm, and wait on hold for the bank to respond to my call. The first woman I talked to was not the most helpful, but she was at least cordial. She seemed incredibly confused at the situation, but did me the favor of refunding the $35 overdraft fee and then said that they would investigate the claim and provide a claim number. I asked her what I should do in the meantime, as I am now beyond broke and have no access to food, gas, whatever money until they figure things that are obvious out. I didn't word it like a jerk though. It is not her fault this franchise is as dumb as a box of rocks. She said she understood and would transfer me to some kind of emergency fund line so they could at least reinstate my paycheck so I could get by. She proceeded to transfer me to someone that said they don't deal with these things and that I needed to talk to the special check fraud department despite my service request already being submitted. Now, this lady, Lisa from Texas, may or may not have been the same lady I initially talked to. She sounded the same and was also from Texas, but her patience was apparently down around her ankles. She made me submit a check fraud claim, asked me if I knew these people or if I had given my account number out to anyone, implying that I am somehow in cahoots with these people. She went on to mention this amazing favor of redacting the overdraft fee and then told me in no uncertain terms that they don't do any emergency funding in these situations. She then asked me if I wanted to put a stop to any outgoing payments on my account and make a new one, in which case they would move any incoming funds from the original account to the new account within a few days of receipt. Given my tight timeline of having to use my measly funds and the fact that I think this is a banking error and not fraud, I told her I would wait and call back because I needed time to think about how it would impact my credit score. She then played a generic message about how they won't be liable if I am again defrauded unless I close the existing account and create a new one. I have called and talked to the lawyer's paralegal after some phone tag. She at first seemed to think that I was accusing them of something, but I explained that I wanted to tell them their check was going to bounce because I'm sure it will incur a ton of fees. She recognized the check amount and the people listed on the check and said she would call me back after she looked into it and called the local branch. Once she called back, she said that she was confused and asked again who I was and why I knew about this check. I told her that it was cashed from my account and the routing/account number is the same. The bank is the same as well, but obviously I have nothing to do with this mystery purchase. She's now asking me to send an image of the check, which I don't mind doing since I will remove my actual account number. Will I be somehow liable if I don't file a police report? The report requires me to find whoever cashed the check and have them fill out paperwork. Is it possible to get the bank to reimburse me for the cost of my vacation time and whatever fees I will end up incurring because I cannot pay my bills now? Is there any reason I should not send the cancelled check minus account number to the paralegal? And a user in the comments said, not a lawyer, but I am a fraud investigator for a bank. Definitely get a lawyer if they don't reimburse you timely, but there's no way in hell, or the UCC guidelines that govern check items and fraud, that they would be able to decline your claim. Go to your nearest branch and request a check fraud affidavit, ensure that they make you a copy. In these cases, branch employees will be of way more assistance than call center bankers. Did this post within the past 24 hours? If so, they can return it unpaid with a snap of a finger, so as long as it was not deposited or cashed by a customer/account at the same bank. In addition, I would recommend getting a police report. It shows that you are putting yourself on the line and are not in on the fraud. I sincerely doubt the bank will refund anything related to your vacation, etc. without a lawyer. And another person in the comments gave some very good advice. He said, former branch manager here, this seems like overkill to me. This stuff happens constantly. Your bank is acting like a bunch of morons pretending they have not seen this before. They can and should credit you the fund back the second you call. Demand a provisional advice of credit in the amount of the check until they can sort things out, which in my experience should take about 10 to 15 minutes. That should be it, but since they are playing hardball, I would absolutely file a police report. I would try to blame the lawyer and the bank in the police report, not the person who wrote the check. Banks and lawyers especially will roll over fast when formally accused. I have been involved in things like this where perchance the person in charge of fixing things was a moron and the problems piled up. If you came to me with this, I would refund all your fees, get your money back and write letters of good standing on company letterhead to anyone you bounced the payment to, explaining it was entirely resultant of bank error. I would do this all within 5 minutes of you walking into the branch. Demand nothing less than this. Edit, you also have a right under the Check 21 Act to know who deposited that check. The bank will tell you. I would go talk to your local branch manager. People in banks are generally dumb as bricks with the exception of branch managers. And by the way guys, I would really love to know what you think about potentially including some very interesting legal advice stories at the end of the video, even though they might not have an update. Of course, if there is an update in the future, I would update you guys. However, please let me know what you think about this, because I can understand if you only want stories that have an update. I just thought it might be a good little dessert at the end of the video. But in any case, let me know your feedback and I hope you enjoyed the content today. If you did, please don't forget to also click the bell button to not miss any of my videos, because currently it seems like YouTube is recommending my videos to non-subscribers more than they are recommending it to my existing subscribers. Thank you very much for watching and I hope you have a fantastic day and I see you again tomorrow.